Every once in a while, as a team employee, I have to serve up a softball. All right.
Asking about the Duke UNC rivalry is not a softball to those guys, Evan. That's the real deal.
Okay, so I wanna stick on the topic at hand. Okay.
I don't know how much basketball talk we're going to get into today. It is Alex Barth in the host chair on today's episode of Catch-22. Evan Lazar in Minnesota for joint practices between the Patriots and Vikings. So we're changing it up here a little bit today, but we'll still have plenty of Patriots content for you over the next 2 hours. Plus, if you want to call, I actually don't have the number in front of me. Evan, you know the number.
Come on.
855-PATS-500.
Pats-500.
I mean, I just have burned into my brain 617-779-0985.
Okay.
I don't want to start
plug.
mixing up numbers there because they'll give out the wrong number. One of my big fears is giving out my personal number on the air, which I've never done. Hope I never do. But if you want to join us, 855-PATS-500. I think I have access to the emails here. I do. Patriots podcast at patriots.com. If you want to email in and talk to us, we can do some of that as well. But I just kind of want to touch base with Evan and get started here on the joint practices in Minnesota. The second of two just wrapped up. So we'll keep it pretty general between the two. It kind of sounds like it was a tale of 2 days. Patriots won the day on Wednesday. Vikings came back, had a much better day today. So not trying to avoid the conversation of today. I just think we purposely are doing this show later in the week, later in the day than we usually do, so we can look at the picture as a whole. But just to catch anybody up who wasn't following along, Evan, your quick summation of what today was.
Yeah, what did you just put it a tale of 2 days? I think that's a really fair way to put it. And I think overall, that's kind of positive, right? That the Patriots were able to win a day against a team that won 14 games last year and has aspirations for the playoffs once again here in Minnesota. So I still come out of it overall feeling positive. Now, with that being said, we have to be honest about what we saw out there today. And I don't think anybody was too thrilled coming off the practice field with how the Patriots played today. So offensively, to me, if you want to look at the glass half full, it's that Drake May seemed to carry himself well and perform well against a really creative and exotic Brian Flores defense. I thought he kept his head and saw the field pretty well, which is good to see. No turnovers, no uncharacteristic mental errors from Drake May. So that was good to see. But the two big things that we talk so much about, Alex, with this offense are receiver separation and pass protection, right? Are they going to be able to check those two boxes? And I thought today the Vikings defense had great coverage. Sometimes they had great pass rush, and they really were able to control practice.
The one thing about that, and something that stood out to me, and we talked about after the joint practice with Washington, was it was a great day. I don't want to take away from what that day was because I think that the team had a really good day. I think overall, the offense looked better than what you'd probably see if you went back and combed through the film, because I think Drake May elevated the situation at times. Whether that was fitting the ball in the tight windows, throwing guys open, creating windows where he was placing the ball, whether that was him maneuvering in the pocket and being his own best pass protector, I felt like that was a theme throughout that day. And I know I heard you on with Matt McCarthy and Mark Dondero on the Sports Hub before this. It sounds like Drake May did some more of that, maybe more so on Wednesday than today, but I think between the 2 days, did some more of that in Minnesota.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And like I said, I thought he just saw the field well against a really creative defensive coordinator and a guy that even Vrabel talked about more yesterday than today. Just the amount of stuff that Brian Flores throws at you, the multiple fronts and the coverage rotations and all the creative stuff that Flores did. So the fact that Drake May was mentally able to have a grasp on it and stay sharp in that respect, again, was an overwhelming positive. And there were a couple of throws that were close today to Pop Douglas in particular. One that was a clear drop. One went off one of his hands and was maybe a little bit in front of him, but I think still could have been caught. That if he catches those two passes and there are two big plays that we can look back on, maybe that makes us feel a little bit more optimistic overall about how the day went. But I still feel overall on Thursday that we have conversations now about pass protection and maybe not as much about receiver separation. Like the big thing that yesterday brought, Alex, was that the Vikings were getting home with the pass rush on both days, But yesterday, the Patriots had a couple, let's call them 4 or 5 plays where they were able to block it, and Drake May was able to hang in there. And those were big plays down the field, right? Like I know a lot of people have probably seen some of the clips of Travion Henderson on the wheel route or Matt Collins getting behind the defense. So it was almost like two sides that were exchanging haymakers back and forth. Whereas today we didn't see as many of those punches back by the Patriots offense outside of that Kayshon Boutte throw at the end of practice. So I feel like maybe today we saw a little bit more of the Vikings defense leaning on them, but Drake May, again, I think he handled it pretty well.
Yeah, it sounded like, I mean, maybe some of those yesterday were broken plays, which, look, you want them taking advantage of defensive breakdowns. There were times last year where they didn't even do that. So that's encouraging. When the offensive line did have its issues, and it should be noted, no Jared Wilson today. I unless I missed something when I was driving here, Evan, I don't know if you've seen that. There's no update, right? I know he was at practice. He left early, but it wasn't, he didn't clearly get injured. He just left. And it was Ben Brown in for him, right? I'm not missing any part of that story? No. Okay. So, should be noted they didn't have their starting left guard today. Morgan Moses, I believe, practiced both days, right?
Correct.
So, okay. So still 5 of 5 one day, 4 of 5 the other. Ben Brown was in there at left guard today. When it didn't work for the offensive line in your mind, what went wrong? Was it just guys getting outpowered? Was it more of those line games giving them trouble, like in the game against Washington last week? Like what were the pros and cons for the offensive line this week?
Yeah, I thought yesterday most of the breakdowns that I saw in the offensive line were mental of Flores just spinning the dial up front and getting free runners to the quarterback. And that's going to happen. That those schemed rushes, especially from Flores, that's going to happen. Today, there were probably some more physical, like one-on-one breakdowns, and really looking at the left side of that line with Campbell and Ben Brown. And I do wonder here if Wilson does miss any sort of time with whatever he's dealing with. Is Ben Brown entrenched as the top interior backup? Because that's what we found out today a little bit, that Ben Brown is currently the top interior backup.
I was going to ask you that. Like, what does that mean for Cole Strange?
Right. Like, does that hold, though, moving forward? Do they give a look to Cole Strange? Do they give a look to Sidney Sower, Layden Robinson? I actually think Mekhi Butler has really acclimated himself pretty well, had some standout reps in one-on-one. So are they set in stone with the 5 that we've seen most of camp, and then Ben Brown as that top interior backup? Is that 100% what it's going to be? Because I didn't think that Ben Brown had a great day today. So maybe that's a spot that they look at and maybe they make a change. But overall, I think a lot of the pressure today was the Vikings front, Dallas Turner, Jonathan Grenard certainly had his way a little bit with Will Campbell. Those were the things that we were seeing out there.
All right, talk to me about these receivers. It sounds like pretty much across the board, the receivers had a good week. I didn't see too much about any of the receivers not having a great day. The big thing to me, my big receiver takeaway from the week, admittedly not being there, was that Mike Vrabel today was asked to clarify some comments Todd Downing made on Monday back here about with Stephon Diggs. The big thing with him is, when he doesn't get the ball, still understanding he's doing his job when the volume's not there. And we can get to that comment itself if you want. I think Diggs is going to get the ball and volume in this offense. We've talked about this. He's probably going to be their big slot guy. But within that answer, so Vrabel's asked about that comment. He kind of says, it's really about the process at this time of year, not as much as the results. Are you getting open? Are you creating separation even if the ball's not coming your way? And unprompted, he brings up Kyle Williams as an example of that. It mentions Kyle Williams has been doing a lot of what they like, even if the ball's not coming his way. And it sounded like, ironically, the ball came his way more today after Vrabel said that. But, I heard that as that's just on the top of his mind, right? Guy who's having a good camp, even if the production's not there. I need an example. Oh, Kyle Williams. So I know some people have questioned where has he been at. The reports have been kind of quiet. It is tough when you watch these practices and we can't go back over the film to kind of highlight guys that aren't maybe around the football as much. And when it happened in the game, right? The game we had that opportunity. We went back, we looked, we talked about it. I called it maybe the best game I've ever seen a wide receiver play where he didn't catch a ball. So that was my big wide receiver takeaway just from the week and all that. What about yours?
Yeah, so I think it's sort of twofold. Like one is the roster conversation of who's going to make this team, and then the other is just how they actually went out there and performed in the
Yeah.
practices. So I'll start with the performance. It was, I thought Diggs yesterday. Look, this is old stomping grounds for him. He obviously Minnesota is the team that drafted him, the team that traded him. So there's a lot of there's a lot of feelings, I'm sure, for Stephon Diggs when he comes back here, both positive and negative. So he showed out yesterday. Yesterday was one of the best days of practice that Stephon Diggs has had in my mind since the Patriots, since he got to the Patriots. So that was really good to see. Pop Douglas had his moments. He had the couple of drops where the balls go off his hands today that maybe could have been completions, but I thought again was getting open a decent amount on both days. So that's a positive. And then that third spot is really currently a battle between Matt Collins and Kayshon Boutte as to who's going to be that true outside X receiver for their starting offense. And that dovetails into do they start to have the conversations of Kyle Williams potentially competing for that role here soon moving forward. So I thought, like you said, it was a better day for Kyle Williams, or I shouldn't even say better. It was a more noticeable day for Kyle Williams today. He caught 2 passes from Joshua Dobbs, who, by the way, Dobbs had a really nice.
Yeah, I wanted to get to
today. But he caught 2 passes from Dobbs in red zone, one little snag route for a short completion, but a completion. And then the other was an in cut on the goal line for a touchdown. And it was ironic or funny that Vrabel brought that up today. And then Kyle Williams flashed a couple times in 11 on 11. So a better day for him. They were better in 7s than they were 11s in terms of the starters. But I did think that at times there was some really tight coverage by the Vikings, and the Patriots, top flight receivers struggled, especially in the red zone periods, to get separation. Now, the last thing I got to mention, because the island is expanding for Efton Chism. Right?
Okay, why is it an island for Efton Chism? That is a cornerback thing. That is a cornerback thing.
The island is expanding.
But it's not an island. He's not a cornerback. That doesn't make any sense.
People are building houses. People are moving in. There's moving trucks.
I'm sorry I'm not there. I'm not on the inside joke. But, you got to come up with another analogy.
No, I'm not coming. That's the analogy.
But he's not a cornerback.
Well, I have no idea what that has anything to do with.
Because that's the island thing is associated with cornerbacks. It always has been. It always will be.
This is honestly a Bill Simmons thing. Bill Simmons talks about it with basketball players all the time. He's a big guy with certain players that are under the radar or whatever. Efton Chism, regardless, you want to get mad, I'm calling it an island.
I'm not saying it's not deserved. I just think it's a weird analogy.
They're buying land and then they're building houses. So if you want some land on Efton Chism Island, Alex, you better start to purchase right now because it's getting a little crowded over there. He was the best receiver with the 2s today by a country mile. The second string defense by Minnesota had his hands full with Efton Chism. Now it's the 2s on the 2s, right? So we're not talking about him going up against a Byron Murphy, for example, with true starter reps. I don't know how we get there because of Diggs and Pop Douglas, who have both had really good camps, especially Pop has really emerged as a consistent threat. So I don't know how you're getting Chism. Maybe they have that Edelman Amendola thing going on, right? Where both of them kind of play in passing situations. But I'm getting to the point now where with Efton Chism that I have a hard time envisioning a scenario where he doesn't make this team. He's playing his way onto the roster, and it just seems like he keeps getting better and better every single day. We can talk about some of the individual plays. I thought the best one that he had was a corner route in the back pylon of the end zone from Joshua Dobbs, where not only did he create a window or some separation there, but then he also finished through some contact at the catch point. So you see some physicality or play strength there to be able to shield the catch point and finish through contact. He separated on a wheel route that was more schemed open than it was a great route, but still his understanding of concepts and space and all that good stuff has been present. He was open. He was open consistently throughout the entire practice. And like I said, I don't know how they get reps for him with Drake May. How do they figure that out?
Why do you think he's not running more with the 1s? Because
I think that's why. Like, if you're the one, like right now, Diggs is sort of that Z role and pops the slot, and like, are you going to take? Like, I guess you could take those guys off the field sporadically to give Chism, some sprinkled in 1 reps, right? But it's hard. I think I don't think that they are in a spot yet with him where he's better than those guys. So I hear you. Like, it's interesting. And I would love to see it. I would love to see him with the ones to maybe get a look at how he does against better competition.
Like, just to get a look. And we were here for Jacoby Myers when he was a UDFA, and he did this, and it looked good, and he was beating the twos, but it didn't really become real until suddenly he's out there catching passes from Brady. And it was okay. This is the real deal. And look, ultimately that wide receiver room did not amount to being much, but it was crowded. It was crowded, just like this one is. So I'm not saying Chism's not going to make the team. I think he is. I just like to kind of see him see him against the top corners, see him against Marcus Jones, right? And just start building that chemistry with Drake May. I think that's important too. Is 7 wide receivers in play for you?
Yeah, I think it has to be, because I thought Javon Baker had another nice day today too. I thought he made some plays.
Would you look at
with
that?
The twos. The twos, like, really, as much as I had concerns about the ones, and I know we all really only care about the ones, but the twos had a much better day than the ones today. If you're looking for positives, and Javon Baker made a couple plays. He's been consistently contributing on special teams, and they're making a lot out of the fact that he's contributing so much on special teams. So that's a big element of that as well. So I do think that you're in the conversation now of maybe keeping 7 wide receivers. I'm with you though on Chism. Like, it's to the point now with Chism where they have to start to think about sprinkling some reps with Drake May. And maybe after this practice today, if he has another preseason game like he had against Washington, we go back to Foxborough next week and Efton Chism is running with the ones, right? I could see that totally happening, but it's been impressive to watch that Commanders preseason game. I feel like the light kind of came on, right? He had a decent game. He had some flashes in the second half of that game. And then this week, he's just been Joshua Dobbs's go-to guy on that second unit. So I could definitely see that.
So it was funny. Vrabel was asked before practice if there could be a battle for the second quarterback job. And he kind of shot it down. Like, he didn't entirely close the door, but he kind of shot it down. But I think it was interesting. He was asked that, and then Josh Dobbs comes out. I'm not saying like Josh Dobbs heard it and got motivated, but
right. I'm sure he heard it in the meeting rooms.
Yeah,
last night.
Exactly. Good day for Josh Dobbs, which I think he kind of needed.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that.
Yeah. Elsewhere on the Travion Henderson, that's how real is this? He's been awesome this summer. We've seen players, and I'm not wishing this on him or anything. We've seen players have great summers and then not 100% translate. But this one feels pretty real, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Alex, we're getting old. So this is our 8th training camp.
Well, you're 7th because you were back and forth to New York in 2018.
I was mostly here. 8th training camp. And this is the best skill player that I've seen them get through the draft in my time, easily covering this team. And your boys on the Sports Hub today, I think it was Dondero, asked me, like, when's the last, like, since when, right? Like, we know it's the best skill player they've drafted in the last 4 or 5 years, but like, how far back are we really going? And when you start to think about it, like, do you have to go all the way back to the Gronk Hernandez draft? Like, do you have to go that far back? Like, you might. I mean,
so the one thing
he's special talent. Like, his speed is different. He's physical. His pass protection is unbelievably good. I just don't really have anything that I look at him as a running back besides the fact that he's not, the size of like a Derrick Henry, right? Like, he's not a big back.
Yeah.
But for the skill set that he has, like, that he's big enough and he's strong enough. I'm just running out of reasons to not think that this is real or think it's just different, because he just looks different.
I think so. I heard that question is like impact from a rookie as a whole in their rookie year. Ironically, my mind went to Jack Jones because he had a decent year as a rookie. But I mean, going back before that, you talk about impact in his rookie year. Not Sony Michel. Ramondre Stevenson in 2021 had a pretty good rookie year. But then you go back, like Sony down the stretch, that's 2018. And then before that, if we're just doing any rookie, I think it's Chandler Jones and Dante Hightower.
Yeah.
In terms of the impact of a single rookie.
Thinking, yeah, right. I was more
skill
thinking
position.
Skill player.
You're probably going that far back. I mean, Sony Michel had an impact, I would say. He had a pretty significant impact. It was different because he wasn't a big play threat.
Right.
But he had a tremendous impact on that team. You can't say he didn't.
Yeah, he had an impact for sure. But I would you mentioned it just there. Like, it's the big plays.
Right.
Even today, which wasn't a great day for the offense, he they were working out of maybe from like the 10 to 12 yard line, and they opened up a little bit of a crease for him on an outside zone run, and he just exploded through the hole and just ran right into the end zone. It was like the cleanest run that they probably had over the 2 days. And you just see the speed, the wheel route's going to get a lot of attention, but there was actually a play earlier on a similar kind of route where he had a defender on him and he was able to go up and get the ball and finish through some contact. At his size, he's got ability to win at the catch point as well. And then the pass protection, like I mentioned before, he's had some ridiculous pass protection reps over the last 2 days. He took a guy today that kind of was jumping, in the air to try to back down a Drake May pass. And Travion Henderson, they all, with offensive linemen, they always say punish jumpers, right? If the guy's going to jump in the air, then you should get your hands on him and you should throw him to the ground. 95 pounds, Travion Henderson takes a linebacker who's jumping in the air and just throws him down into the ground. And you're just like, this guy is he's just really good at football. He's just a really good football player. Now, it's practice, it's preseason, all those things aside, but you can see it. You know the difference. And frankly, we've seen skill players that they've drafted early that don't have that kind of juice, and we know what that looks like. Probably a little bit too much, right? We know what that looks like a little bit too much on the flip side of this. So when you see a guy like Travion Henderson do what he does, you can tell that it's different.
Anything else on the offense from you from the last couple of days?
I would, the tight end position was a little quiet. I thought yesterday.
Jack Westover still repping as the top fullback?
Yeah, so Jack Westover was still in there. Jack Westover's usage is actually kind of interesting for us nerds because with the ones he's running at fullback, and then they're also still sprinkling in some tight end, pure tight end reps with the twos. So they maybe have a plan or a role in mind for Jack Westover. I could see that sticking. And, Hunter Henry didn't practice yesterday. He was back today. Him and Hooper caught some touchdowns in red zone. That were probably some of the better 11-on-11 plays that the Patriots had today. So that was good to see. I go back to the offensive line, though, because it's just such a sticking point for this team. I just think everything for them offensively starts and ends with the line. I think Drake May is going to be good. I think Josh McDaniels is going to get guys open if they're able to block. If they're able to hold up front, McDaniels is going to scheme it up. He'll get guys separation. He'll get guys open. He'll use play action. He'll use picks. He'll use stacks and bunches. He'll use motion. He'll do different things to help these receivers get off the line of scrimmage and get open. I have no doubt about that. I think the questions that you just have are really the middle of the line. How does that solidify itself? Garrett Bradbury, Jared Wilson, whoever's at left guard, and then Campbell. Campbell today, Grenard had the advantage. There's no doubt about it. Some of these sacks you don't know, right? He kind of taps Drake May on the way by. Would he have sacked him in a game? Who knows? But that's really where I'm at, and it's kind of where I've just been at, I guess. And really, we're just keep going in circles with this, with the offensive line. That it's just that's the sticking point. If they can block consistently, then I think they're going to be a pretty good offense.
Just real quick on Westover to go back. I actually talked to Thomas Brown on Monday about him, and he said one of the things that stood out to him is that versatility, the ability to play fullback and play Y and play F tight end. So if you're the Patriots, right, and you want to keep a third tight end and you want to keep a fullback, well, Westover maybe saves you a roster spot, because if he can do both, well, now maybe that's where the seventh wide receiver comes from, or that's where a 10th offensive lineman comes from, or another corner or something like that. And look, when you want to go super heavy, right, and you want 3 tight ends and the fullback, you just put Caden Wallace, whoever, up on the line of scrimmage, and he becomes your 3rd tight end. So I think Westover's probably in a, and I haven't been there this week, so you were going to have to fill in the blank from the last 2 days. Feels like Westover's going to make the team and be the fullback. At least that's what it felt like to me before they left for Minnesota.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's where we're at now. The question that I have with Westover is the fullback not on the roster? Yeah, is there a waiver, a guy that gets placed on waivers or cut on cut down day? Does a team thought that they were going to have a traditional fullback, and then they got into camp and realized that they kind of wanted to pivot away from a traditional fullback, and you could trade for one or just acquire one somehow from a different avenue? Because Westover's had some good blocks. He caught a seam touchdown from Joshua Dobbs in the 1-minute drill to end practice today. That was a nice moment. So it's not that he has no plus plays or highlights, whatever you want to call it, to think about. But I don't know if like I had on my bingo card that Jack Westover was going to make this team. And I don't necessarily think that it's like an Efton Chism situation where he's really just coming on strong to make the roster. So we'll see. But your point about his versatility is where really what it is if he can do that, if he can kind of be a jack of all trades, then that might be enough.
Again, we'll go pretty phone and email heavy today. 855-PATS-500. I want to hit on a couple more things from the joint practices. I also realize we haven't had a show since the game, so we should probably talk a little bit about that.
That's true.
I know how tough it is with these joint practices when they're on 2 fields at once and you can't watch everything, and it sounds like you're watching mostly the offense. So I'll just like big picture thoughts on the defense. It sounded like they had a better day yesterday than today. How much did J.J. McCarthy suck? Like, what'd you see from that unit?
So I wish I could report that J.J. McCarthy had 2 terrible days. No, I'm just kidding. But we both know.
I know he had one. I know from seeing the reports. I know he had one.
How I felt about J.J. McCarthy. He had a good day today, by all accounts. And I'm comparing notes with Deuce and other people that were watching defense. It wasn't a lot, right? But everybody that had 2 people here, it felt like they divided and conquered over the last couple of days. But when you look at the defense, I think there was some pressure on McCarthy, which is good to hear. Christian Barmore was back out there today. Sounded like early on in the practice he was able to get some pressures and get in the backfield. Yesterday it was Landry and Williams that were sort of ups or stars of the day on the defensive side of the ball, getting in the backfield. So it does sound like, even though McCarthy kind of punched back today, so to speak, that the defense in the pressure was impactful or noticeable. I think the things that defensively that were, there are things that just are on my mind, and let's go one at a time because I think there's a lot to unpack. The biggest thing that's on my mind right now is how they're going to cover tight ends.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean that who's going to cover the tight end. I mean literally how. Like, what's the game plan? What's the scheme? What's the X's and O's of how they're going to go about covering tight ends in this defense? Because we knew with Belichick, man-to-man defense, they had those tight end stoppers, the safety hybrids that they would use a lot on the tight ends. But in this camp and these joint practices, even going back to the one in Foxborough with the Commanders that you can speak to more with Ertz, like Ertz has given them problems last week, and then Hawkinson has given them problems this week. And we all know who's coming here week 1 with the Las Vegas Raiders and Brock Bowers. So I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves and start talking about week 1, but how are they going to cover them? What's the schematic wrinkles? And who is equipped in this defensive back room to cover them? Because yesterday they primarily put Jabril Peppers on TJ Hawkinson, and that didn't go so well. Today, it sounded like it was a lot of Marcus Jones on TJ Hawkinson, and that didn't go particularly well either. So what are they doing there?
So there were 2 things I wanted to ask you, and they both kind of relate to this. One, was Carlton Davis more involved today?
Yes, Carlton Davis was starting on the outside.
How did he look? Does he look healthy? Does he look good?
Yeah, he looks normal. He looks like Carlton Davis. Right. I didn't think that his guys were really the primary guys, honestly, and I don't mean to pick on him, but the guy that really got picked on, which kind of is my second thing here, was Marcus Jones. Marcus Jones was the one that they were really targeting, but I want to stick on the tight end.
Well, so, okay, and I want to get back to that, and there's another part of this that we need to mention too, obviously, if we'll get to him, was this, because this happens with Marcus Jones every once in a while. Did Marcus Jones struggle because he was out of position and he was getting beat on leverage and he wasn't reading routes right? Or did Marcus Jones struggle because he's 5'8" and they're asking him to cover guys that are 6'5"? Because
the second one.
Okay, so that one doesn't bother me. And look, I like Marcus Jones. He's a good player, and I think he plays with tremendous physicality for his size. I do. Yeah. It's part of what makes him a good player. There's still a limitation to that in terms of height. Like, I remember when they had him, I think it was 22. Was it 21 or 22? Well, he was in the 22 draft, so it wouldn't have been 21. The Bengals came here in, like, November, and they had him covering T. Higgins, and he was on T. Higgins for most of the game, but they just started throwing T. Higgins jump balls, and at the end of the day, I mean, they both have elite verticals. You start at 6'5" versus you start at 5'8". One guy's going to win. So that doesn't bother me so much. Like, Marcus Jones shouldn't be covering tight ends. He shouldn't be asked to be doing that. Just size-wise, it's not a fit. Carlton Davis could be an answer. The other guy who probably is not an answer here based on what we've seen this camp, but I wonder if he was supposed to be a part of the answer to that question, and it hasn't worked out, is Kyle Duggar. And for people who have missed it, Kyle Duggar's running with the twos. Today, with Jabril Peppers out, it sounds like he was still with the twos, and it was Del Pettis moving up, if that's correct, Evan. Was that the case?
Yeah, okay. That was the case, yeah.
Like with Duggar, let me be clear about it. Duggar's usage is not reflective of a player who's outright cut. That is, and I don't mean to pick on the guy because, I'm a fan of his, that Anthony Jennings is being used like a player who's not going to make the team. Anthony Jennings is on the scout team. That's it. He played till the end of the preseason game. Like, that's indicative of a player who they don't plan on keeping around. I hope they can trade him. It would really suck to have to cut a player that has his talent, but he's not a fit for the defense. Fine, I get it. Maybe you can find him a role, but I get it. Kyle Duggar's being used like a bubble player. Kyle Duggar's being used like a player who's, if you were to rank the roster 1 to 90, 53 guys make it, he's probably 54, 55, 56. Right? So between 50 and 56. Just on or just off. What complicates it is he's on a $14 million contract that they really don't save a lot of money this year if they cut him. They save money if they trade him. They save money for the future. But you could also cut him after this year and still save that money. So do you keep a $14 million what essentially would be a backup? And there's some questions that go into that. How would he handle that? What are your other options? So just, I guess, putting that all on the table, what have you seen from Kyle Duggar, and where do you think this goes?
Well, I would just take from Kyle Duggar, I would just take Mike Vrabel at face value here when he says his answer yesterday to the Duggar question was that it's mostly mental, right? It's system, it's a scheme change. And even though there's a different coach here last year, Kyle Duggar's only ever been in the Belichick defense since he got drafted. So when he comes in here and now he's in a whole new defense and he's learning, and not to pick on where he went to school, but Lenore Ryan was probably not running an NFL defense, right? So we're really talking about Kyle Duggar's NFL experience all being in the Belichick playbook. And now you put this new defense in, which is a lot more split safety. It's a lot more quarters based. There is still man-to-man, but it's just different. And so the guys that are getting run, Craig Woodson, Jalen Hawkins, those guys are pure free safeties. They're pure coverage.
Do you think Craig Woodson's a pure free safety, or is he more of a tweener? I see him as more of a tweener.
I think he's a pure free safety.
So would you put him on tight ends or no?
I don't think so, because I think the biggest issue that they had with Hawkinson today, and maybe, I watched a little bit more of it today than yesterday, is that it's not that the guys that are covering him are getting dusted. It's catch point stuff, right? And Craig Woodson doesn't have a great length and arm span either. So that's the biggest issue, is that, Marcus Jones, you mentioned the 5'8" thing. It's not just that he's only 5'8". It's also that his reach just isn't great. So when he gets on the back of a tight end and the tight end is just able to just box him out, it's not even about elevation. It's also just about catch point, ability to reach into the cookie jar there and get the ball when he's targeted. So I just look at this schematically to talk about it from an X's and O's standpoint. is it just as simple as when you face a really good tight end like a Hawkinson or like a Bowers that you have a primary man-to-man defender, but you also are you either bracketing him or you have robber help or low hole help, or he's playing off of help to the middle of the field so that it's helping him take away certain routes and he can just kind of focus on covering the seams and covering, that type of thing, right? We've seen that in the past with Belichick, that he would do that against, number ones, really good receivers. But then, like, the other side of that is when they go in against an offense that has, other playmakers, where you might not be able to commit all those resources to covering a tight end. And then there's really one-on-one matchups with the tight end, right? Like, then what do you do? Because right now, like, Ertz last week, it was kind of Kyle Duggar, and that's sort of what started this whole thing with Kyle Duggar, I think, is that Ertz had a lot of connections with Jaden Daniels in the joint practice with the Commanders. This week, Hawkinson has picked on some guys too. So my question, I guess, to you, and just for the sake of conversation, like, does Alex Austin get into this mix at some point? Maybe. Like, that's the only other guy that I can think of, because you're going to have Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis on as your primary corners. Alex Austin's had a nice camp. I think he's an NFL corner. I think he's a third corner in this league. But maybe in order to get him on the field and to get some size on those tight ends, like, maybe you can not fully convert. Like, you can still play some outside corner, but maybe in certain game plans, Alex Austin is the guy that on third down is covering the tight end.
Well, look, Vrabel comes from that Belichick background where we know Bill would look at elite tight ends and treat them like wide receivers. He'd call them wide receivers. So is it you're calling Alex Austin a safety, or is it you're calling Brock Bowers a wide receiver? Because I think it might be more the latter. And I mean, I don't hate Alex Austin as a tight end stopper. With help. I think with the Raiders, and we've talked about this, you can probably use Carlton Davis because they don't have the wide receiver depth.
Right.
Now, when you play the Steelers and they have DK Metcalf and why am I blanking on their other outside guy?
It's not George Pickens anymore.
No, I know it's not. That's what I almost said.
We're both blanking on it at the moment. Keep talking. I'll look at it.
I almost said Matthew Golden because I remember I mocked Matthew Golden to them, and that would have been a sneaky fun pick if they'd done it.
So the reason why we can't think of it is because, like, it's not great.
Oh, they don't really have anybody. Yeah, I thought they had another guy. All right,
Robert Woods. I mean, I'm a Roman Wilson guy, but he's more of a slot
he's inside.
receiver.
Whoever they face that has a good tight end and two outside guys, right? Like, then maybe it's Alex Austin. I still don't hate Carlton Davis in that role. Has anybody thrown out the Carlton Davis Aqib Talib comp yet? Or am I the first to do that?
No, and I do agree with that, but, like, if you play a team, and I know it's not every team that's built this way, and Justin Jefferson wasn't practicing today. Yeah. Or yesterday. But, like, the way I thought about it with this Vikings matchup, like, if you were playing the Vikings in a regular season game and their offense was fully healthy, you have Jefferson and Addison, right? So you're not going to put Gonzalez or Davis on Hawkinson.
But how many of those teams are they going to face?
I mean, in the division, you at least have Miami, right?
But Miami's different. Miami, you can use Marcus Jones on the outside.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that frees up Carlton Davis.
That's fair.
Right?
It's just, I guess it's more like it's twofold. It's a blind spot to me, I think, in terms of how this scheme handles tight ends in general, because we were so accustomed to how they did it under Belichick. That I still don't 100% have a great feel for what they want to do. Practice is practice. Like, they're running their base coverages and things like that. They're not going to, like, game plan TJ Hawkinson for a joint practice. So that's one thing.
So just real quick to go through it. Like, Raiders, no. Dolphins, no. Steelers, no. Panthers, no. They don't have, and McMillan even, we don't know what he's going to be. The Bills don't have two elite outside guys. They do have a good tight end, but I think you can put Carlton Davis on tight end there. Saints, no. Titans, no. Browns, no. Falcons, probably not. Who's their guy opposite London at this point?
Darnell Mooney, who's a good player.
Yeah, but you could put Marcus Jones on Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, I like Darnell Mooney, just for the record.
So Tampa. Although Tampa, who's Tampa's tight end? Is still Who's Tampa's tight end?
Oh man, we're really quizzing ourselves right now on the.
I mean, I know most of these. I feel good about it. Most of these I have off the top of my head. It's the NFC teams that are tripping me up. So Tampa has the two great outside guys, but they're starting tight. Okay, it's Cade Otton. I don't know why I thought Cade Otton was like older than that. Cade Otton's only 26. Wow. I thought he'd been there for a few years when Brady got there. I guess not. Like, you're not worried about Cade Otton like you're worried about Brock Bowers. So that's one where they have the two outside guys, but you're not worried about what's going on at tight end. The Jets, no. The Bengals, maybe, if everybody's healthy at that point, because you're going to have, obviously, they're two big guys on the outside, Yoshivas in the slot, and they're Gesicki's been good for them. Gesicki's been solid for them. So, okay, November 23rd, you got to come up with a plan by Thanksgiving. Basically. Sure. And then Giants, Bills, the Ravens would be another one, and then the Jets and the Dolphins. So you have two games where this kind of layout might actually be a problem. Three, if you want to count the Bucs, if you're a big fan of Cade Otton, none of those games are till November. So it is something to need to figure out. Like, in the short term, though, I'm not against putting Carl, and I'm sure we missed one of people who yell at us in the comments, but there's clearly not that many. I think for a good amount of the season, if you're worried about facing an elite tight end, you can move Carlton Davis inside. Or not inside, but against the tight end. And some of those tight ends line up on the boundary. And yeah, when you get to November 23rd and you're playing the Bengals, I'm sure we'll talk a lot about it on that show. Hopefully by that point, either Kyle Duggar's figured out the defense, or Craig Woodson has shown you some more chops in coverage, or whatever, right? Something. It's a long season. Things happen. Just to put a bow on the conversation, though, what do you think ultimately happens with Kyle Duggar?
Yeah, I don't know. It's an expensive backup, right? I mean, if that's the role for him.
Yeah, it is, but there's not this massive crunch for roster spots. Like, he still is probably one of the 53 best players on the team. And they have the cap space. So they're not, the biggest thing, they're not a team that's prohibited from keeping an expensive backup.
So I think that the thing that I see with Kyle Duggar that first of all, just off the top of Kyle Duggar, like I'm a Kyle Duggar guy. I kind of have been an apologist for him over the last couple of years. He's had high highs and low lows at times. You know, he does give up plays in coverage, but when he's at his best, he's makes a handful of just dynamic splash plays on the ball, and that those can be really valuable. I will always go back to him jumping that screen against the Raiders and just walking into the end zone. Like, those types of plays that he would make were rare plays. But the thing with Kyle Duggar, in my mind, is a combination of, is his athleticism sapped by that injury last year, and he's not all the way back. This was an explosive athlete. Like, he was a great combine tester coming out. He was an explosive athlete for the first couple of years of his career, until last year when he was hurt. And I thought he was going to come back and be the guy that we saw 2 years ago, hopefully. And he doesn't move as well right now. Now, is that also, like, long-winded answer, but, like, is that also mental, right? Is it also that he's not processing the game quick enough because of this scheme change and the difference in the defense? Like, that's also possible too. So I just wonder, you brought up Anthony Jennings. I feel a similar way about Jelani Tavai. Like, is Kyle Duggar
Tavai's hurt? That's its own.
I know,
thing.
but I'm also just thinking about like is a Jelani Tavai style linebacker?
I get what you're saying. Okay,
a fit in this defense. Like, do they have a role for that kind of player in this defense?
As a backup, probably, but it's not a significant role.
I don't know if Kyle Duggar is a schematic fit in the defense that they want to run, and maybe that's not a this year thing, because you can't turn over the entire roster in one off season, and you're going to have guys that are going to be holdovers from a different scheme. But just long term, I look at Kyle Duggar and say maybe this just it's not the right defense for him.
Yeah, I get the roster turnover thing's big. I've been playing Madden. It's hard to get the whole roster turned over as quick as you want. I have Madden codes, by the way, on Twitter if you want to go check that out. Real quick, Evan, I'll let you submit to win a Madden code.
Okay.
Your favorite, and a lot of people have not read the directions, because I've gotten quite a few answers that say the Malcolm Butler interception or the James White touchdown. But if you read the directions, I asked for people's favorite Patriots regular season memory. I almost did regular season touchdown, And
regular season memory.
I thought too many people would just say Kembrell Tompkins. I wanted the wider gap, and I've gotten some good ones. It's going to be a tough choice. I'm going to decide tomorrow because they haven't actually sent me. They send you the codes like 24 hours later. But favorite regular season Patriots memory. I have mine. I have two. One's my personal favorite, and one I just think was my favorite game.
Okay, so I have two.
Okay, naturally, that's how this show would go.
And I have a difficult time deciding between these two because I think both of them. I'm trying to think.
I'm not asking you for the best game, your personal favorite. There's some I'll give you one for me. Is the 59-0 snow game against the Titans because
that's a whole game. That's not a.
I'll count it as a moment. It's kind of wide. I'll count it as a moment. That's fair. The reason I like that game is I don't remember why, but my parents and my brother had something they were out. I used to love it when it snowed. I had the house to myself. It was a snowy day, and I just sat down and watched the Patriots go belt to ass. That was just I just had so much fun watching that game. That's always a fun memory. And then the 24-point comeback against the Broncos, I think, was just exhilarating. That was just electric.
I was at that.
You were there. You were at every game that I wish I was at.
I was at that game sitting on the 50-yard line. Thank you to my uncle. For
one other one, too, I got to give you is David Patton's cycle.
Okay, so I have two that stand out to me. Maybe these are just because of how iconic they are in Patriots history.
Yeah.
The first one is Randy Moss breaking the record with Tom Brady.
That has been a popular answer.
I mean, that's got to be near the top.
I mean, so I probably wouldn't have been able to do this prompt if they win that Super Bowl because that would across the board be the answer. The only reason that's not the greatest regular season moment in Patriots history is because of what comes after it.
Breaking the record simultaneously on one throw and having it be a vintage Moss, just Tyreek Hill putting up the peace sign, that is. And let's not forget, is number one.
Not only to break both their records, it essentially locked up that game to go 16-0.
Yeah.
And they tried the same play the snap before. I think Brady overthrew him, right? Or something. They missed it. The Giants didn't stop it. They missed it. They go back to the huddle. And I think it was I forget the story, but Moss says to Brady or something, do it again. Let's do it again. And then they run it back because they wanted that moment. They wanted it to look like that. What's your other one?
So my other one, I think, that's the biggest moment that I can think of. But this one, I think, is
your personal favorite, though.
I don't know if it's my personal favorite. Okay. But this one, I would say the Moss one's probably my personal favorite.
Okay.
But this one, I think, is probably maybe the most important. And that is Troy Brown's walk-off touchdown in Miami.
You know what? I don't think, and look, I've been on the show. I've kind of been looking at them while I'm on the show. I just tweeted this out before I drove down here. I don't think I've seen a single person say that.
So I'm not picking on anybody. We are both young when that happened.
Yeah.
That might be the age demographic of our audience, right? Because Troy Brown's walk-off touchdown against Miami, which, by the way, is an extremely underrated Tom Brady throw. That's
one of his best, yeah.
Yeah, that's a heck of a throw. And they hadn't won in Miami in eons. And it was a moment where that team clearly stated that they were a different team, right? They were no longer going to go down to Miami and get their butts kicked. That was back when I think the Dolphins still had the baseball diamond on the field and Troy Brown's running through it. And Belichick headset thrown up in the air on the sideline. That was at the time. That was honestly, I know this is kind of sad, but that was one of the bigger wins in Patriots history at the time.
Yeah, because they couldn't win in Miami. I mean, they still can't. They couldn't win in Miami.
Yeah, as terms of regular, obviously they won. In 85 against the Dolphins in the AFC Championship game. That's a huge one before that. But I would say that's one of the biggest regular season wins in Patriots history because it's kind of blouses after that. They're just dominant for 20 years from that point on.
That was before we expected them to win that game like that.
Right.
That's back when it was still a surprise. I just pulled it up, some wild ones. The first one I pulled up, the Marcus Jones walk-off punt return against the Jets.
No, that was
fun.
good.
That was fun.
That was
Ellis
that
Hobbs,
was good.
108-yard kick return touchdown. Sneaky good one. The Deron Harmon pick on the goal line against Pittsburgh.
Yep.
The Jesse James caught it game.
Yeah, he caught it. Yep.
Yep. 24-0 Broncos. The Brady to Moss is there. How about Moss going up over the 3 defenders? That one's there.
Yep.
Butt fumble has been a popular answer. Dan Connolly kick return is a good one. Anyway, those are up there. Yeah, so like if you're saying Malcolm Butler Super Bowl interception, like you didn't read the directions. So just read the directions. It's not that hard. Back joint practices. Anything else? I think we covered everything from the defense there, right? Or did you have another point?
I guess the other one that I would just say defensively,
Yeah.
I think that it kind of goes hand in hand with the tight end take, is that like nickel corner. And maybe this is just recency bias, but they've talked so much about, everybody in the organization has talked so much about the big nickel, right? And wanting to have a guy that has some size.
Isn't that Austin?
Is it Austin? Probably. I mean, at this point with Marcellus Dial, out for the year, it's really there's not a ton of competition, but I just wonder, if Marcus Jones is their type of slot corner. And Marcus Jones is going to be on the team, right? And don't get me wrong. He's going to be a primary punt returner. He's going to play slot corner a lot, and probably in certain matchups more than others, but I still think he's going to be on the field a lot. I just wonder if like maybe there's a world where it's Gonzalez, Davis, and Austin. And those are your 3 guys. For all the reasons that we talked about with the tight end stuff, it's kind of all in the same bucket for me in terms of just getting, the type of body types that they really would prefer, because I don't know, like I said, maybe it's just recency bias, and Marcus Jones had a tough day today, and that's just, where it is. But overall, I just wonder about that with them defensively, because there was just all J.J. McCarthy was doing today, Alex, was just putting the ball in a place that Marcus Jones simply just could not get to. Well, right. And that's just, I wonder how much they're going to live with that.
I think some of that's matchup based too. We've talked about this. Like when you play the Dolphins, you're probably going to use more Marcus Jones. When you play the Bengals, you're probably not. Like I think he's kind of a matchup player. He's a good matchup player, but I think he's kind of a matchup player. All right, you have to do this now for me. It's usually the other way around.
Yes.
How did the kickers look?
So they didn't do a ton of kicking today.
Okay.
Which I thought was weird. I thought they were going to do more special teams. They actually did punt today, like live punt, which was interesting. I thought the Patriots actually had a couple of good returns, and then Gibson had a nice kickoff return. So they did a lot of live punt and live kickoff, where they were like actually punting and kicking the ball, like not like
the kickoff involves the kickers, like that Jeremy Springer told us last week. That's a part of it.
Yes. Yeah. I would say though, yesterday Borgales handled all of the field goals, and they did kick 6 field goals, and he was 5 for 6, and they gave them all to Borgales. So take that for what it's worth.
Sounds like a starter.
That was, that's how that went yesterday. And then today, the special teams periods, which they mixed in to give, the starters breathers in between, 11 on 11s. The special teams periods were punt and kickoff return instead of field goals. So there you go.
Real quick here before we're going to go to the phones. We're going to go to the emails. I see a bunch of you guys lined up. 855-PATS-500 or podcast@patriots.com. We should touch on it because we haven't done a show since the game. It feels like it was 3 weeks ago at this point, but they did play a preseason game since our last show. Just any big picture thoughts coming away from that game that you want to get out there?
Big picture thoughts. I just starting with the offense, I think we all had the same takeaway from that game, which was that the pass offense with the starters wasn't great. Wasn't exactly what you were hoping to see. I thought Drake May, we haven't really talked about the strip sack. I asked Ashton Grant about the read on the strip sack. He told me that Drake May's eyes were in the right place. So I guess I'll take Ashton Grant as a coach on an NFL team. So I'm going to take his word for it. But the way I saw it on the strip sack, and I know everybody sort of makes, I guess, just everybody makes a lot out to do with the decision to try to throw the ball while he was getting dragged to the ground, which admittedly was not a great decision, right? Like I totally get that. But the way I look at it is like, could he have avoided it altogether, right? Like, is there a way, feasibly, that like we don't even get to that point, right?
Yeah.
And I just look at that play, and the Commanders like spin the coverage post snap, right? They show, I want to say they show one high and then they drop out into two high coverage, and he's got slant flat to his left. Travion Henderson releasing into the flat, and I think it was Kayshon Boutte on the slant. You don't want to throw slant flat into cover two. It's just not a good. It's not a good concept to throw against that coverage because the squatting corner on the outside is going to pass a slant off to the inside hook, and then he's going to take the flat, right? Like they have two defenders on two receivers over there. So it's not a great concept to work against too high coverage for that reason. I remember, I think it was Games with Names with Edelman, like Ernie Adams went on one time and they were talking about facing Peyton Manning, and he said that they used to run a lot of quarters against Peyton Manning because all Peyton Manning wanted to do was throw slants to like Dallas Clark and Stokely and those guys, right? So they would play too high and they would take away those slant windows with those inside zones. And Drake sees that rotation and he holds the ball because he knows he can't throw the ball into the flat against the squatting corner because it's going to be a pick six. And he can't throw the slant because there's a linebacker sitting right in the slant window. So long-winded answer to say, like the backside of the concept was a vertical clear out, and then Pop Douglas probably on an option had like a little stick or a little out route, which is a much better concept to work against that coverage. So I looked at it when I watched the film and said, is it too much to ask for him to see that rotation in his drop and start working the other side of the field? And maybe it is. Like Grant said that it was, right? He said that wasn't the problem on the play, and I'll take his word for it. But I just, knowing what I know about Josh McDaniels' offense and how pre-snap and the reads and like the coverage indicator, like all that stuff that McDaniels bakes into the offense, I just wonder if I hate to say Brady, but like I just wonder if like that was supposed to be the situation there, and he got kind of frozen in time because they rotated the coverage and he didn't get the look that he thought he was getting pre-snap. So I look at that type of stuff, and I look at the pass protection, obviously, that the same way as everybody else, and I look at the practice that we saw today with the Vikings. Better practice, I thought, from a reads and mental standpoint from Drake May than maybe that those 14 preseason snaps were. But in general, like I still have concerns about receiver separation, pass protection, and overall passing game execution. Like, could they be good enough in that area?
So you broke that down pretty well. I'll just say I'll give you a more niche takeaway from the game, and like that play, whatever it is, can't happen. Whether it's those guys getting beat, whether it's Campbell and Wilson getting beat on the twist, May, like even if he can't go backside, still taking the sack instead of trying to throw the ball away, right? Or something like that. My other sneaky big takeaway, I mean, some of Travion Henderson looked great, right? That's one of them. Kyle Williams looked really good. We kind of talked about that. Khyiris Tonga. I want to ask you about what Khyiris Tonga did actually in Minnesota, because he, pound for pound, compared to what the expectations were coming in, as Khyiris Tonga had the best camp of anybody on the Patriots. And
he's up there.
His ability to look, he's not Aaron Donald, but his ability to be a factor on the pass rush is important because I still have concerns about their ability to stop the run. He's a primary run player, but when you get into tweener downs, 2nd and 5, 3rd and 2, right? Can he still be out there and not be a liability if they throw the ball? And he's looked far from that, far from any potential liability in those situations so far in camp. So I thought that carried over to the game. I'm actually really excited about Khyiris Tonga.
Yeah, that's a fair thing to be excited about. I think what's taken me just really by surprise. I actually asked him about it, I think earlier this week or last week. All these days are bunting together. His pass rush has just been really good. Like, it's been much better, much more effective bull rusher. He's not going to win a lot with like fancy moves and stuff like that. He's a come right at you kind of guy. But, the bull rush has been much more impactful. And we know on first down, like if you can push that pocket and you can dent the interior of the pocket and not give the quarterback that room to step up into the pocket, like that's big. That can be really impactful, even if he's not technically like, logging quarterback hits or sacks or whatever the case may be. If he's just in the quarterback's lap a lot, like that can be really impactful. And he talked a little bit about sort of his maturation as a pass rusher and how he's improved. And like said he was so focused on, he knew he was a big dude, so he just wanted to go plow straight through a guy, right? The bull rush.
Yeah.
And so he would just try to go right at the center of the blocker, like right in the middle of his chest, and just push him back. And then he's realized, like, oh, if I actually get on his edge first and I get kind of outside of him first and then bull rush and transition into speed to power, like he can't anchor as well as if I just try to go right through him. So it's like one of those things that he kind of said that he had like a epiphany talking to somebody. He didn't necessarily specify who, but he said that he's been like picking people's brains about pass rush, and like somebody said to him, hey, like, stop trying to go right through 315-pound, 320-pound offensive linemen and try to get out on the guy's edge a little bit first and then try to go through him. And all of a sudden, like, he comes into camp and he looks like a pretty good pass rusher. So
yeah,
I don't know what he said it. He admitted it. He was like, I don't know what took so long for me to figure that out, but here we are.
I'm just glad he figured it out. Anything else from the game? Again, I know like we usually break the games down, right? It was just there's been so much since that I don't know how much people like, and we've both broken it down elsewhere. I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to get to on the game.
No, not so much, but I like just in general from coming off these joint practices, because I think the question for Saturday is like how much are the starters going to play in Saturday's game, and the difference is that last week they only had the one joint practice, so the preseason opener was kind of like a joint practice, a glorified joint practice. But at the same time, I just come off the field today and got to think like they don't want to leave Minnesota with this like sort of being the taste in the mouth of the starters, right? Was the way that today went, because they had such a better day yesterday, and it was kind of, one of those things like you said at the beginning of the show where it was a tale of 2 days.
Yeah.
So I have to think that Vrabel is going to watch some of this tape from the practice today and say, we got stuff to work on. We have a lot to work on. And next week it's going to be, last couple of days of Patriots on Patriots training camp for us. And then the Giants preseason game. And then that's it. Then it's Vegas. Right. So I do wonder if they sort of have a same split as last week where it's a drive or two. If the first drive, if Drake May marches them right down the field on the opening drive of the game, then you pull the starters. If it goes like it did last week, then you give them a second series. But I do think there might be some value in having some of those guys play on Saturday after the way that today went.
What's the biggest thing you're looking for on Saturday?
I would. It's a good question because I don't know what like the plan is for Minnesota too, like with their starters, if anybody's going to play and all that kind of stuff. But I would say like receiver separation. I came out of yesterday's practice being so optimistic about how open some of the guys got down the field for Drake May, and then I just didn't really see that out there today, and that was kind of a bummer. So like if they today, yesterday they had guys open, and then on Saturday they can get guys open for a couple drives. Like maybe today was just Minnesota's a good team, right? And they had a better day, but that was the biggest thing I would say that I would look for is, can Drake May find some completions down the field like he did in practice yesterday?
Yeah, I was gonna say, however much the starters do play, that continuation of May, Wilson, and Campbell picking up some of the more complex stuff the Vikings defense does up front. Now, who knows how much they're gonna play? If Wilson plays at all, that's a question as well. But that's kind of the big question for me going into Saturday. All right, I'm sure we'll get to more game previews with these questions. We got a whole bunch of emails too, but we'll start with did I have to do reads, by the way? Nobody gave me reads. Did I have to do reads?
Probably.
Yeah? If you want to run in the reads, I can do the reads. This is where you usually do them when we do the transition, but we'll take one phone call first. We'll get to that. Patty in Agawam, get us started, Patty. Patty, what's up? Got Patty? I will put Patty on hold. Patty, get back to your phone, and we'll try again. How about Nate in Connecticut? Nate.
Hey, guys. How you guys doing?
Hey.
Good.
So my question for you guys is about Efton Chism. Obviously, he had a really good preseason debut last game, and all the players, including Josh Dobbs, Mike Vrabel, they've been praising him for how well he's done Do you think he is a lock? I personally think he is. Just to see his name on the 53 cut list would be a really big disappointment. He's shown some really big flashes and true potential. I just don't see us cutting him. I really think we're going to keep him, and I really think he's going to do well in the league. Thanks, guys.
Evan, is Efton Chism a roster lock?
I'm not ready to say that yet. I think that Diggs, Douglas, Hollins, Booty, Kyle Williams are all going to be here. And that's 5 guys that I just listed that are all going to be here. And until we have a better feel for how many receivers and like what their minimums are at each position under Vrabel, it's kind of hard to say that he's a lock, because most teams are probably okay with keeping 6 if there's 6 worth keeping, but if we're really talking about 7, like that's an abnormal number.
Yeah.
So we have to be. I don't know about lock, but he's certainly playing his way onto the team. That's for sure.
He's on pace to be on the team. Like, I think if he has a rough week next week, maybe you start talking about practice. And we need a term for whatever one step below a lock is. Because he's that. Like, I think he's going to be on the team. But I don't think I'm not writing it in Sharpie yet. Like, I think ultimately, I think he makes team. This is not me saying he's not going to make team. Ultimately, I think he's going to make the team. But I do think, again, he's not running with the ones as much. I do think they, maybe want to see a little more before they get there. Am I reading all these or just the highlighted one? Should have done this before the show.
Highlighted one and then pick 2.
Highlighted one and then pick 2. All right, well, let people know that Touchdown, Bob's Discount Furniture, just opened its 200th store, and you can join in on the celebration. Hustle to your nearest Bob's to shop the latest styles with top-notch features at everyday low prices, like relaxing recliners, game day ready media centers, dining sets made for halftime snacking, and Bobopedic mattresses designed for resting up before first kickoff. Plus, you can enjoy free treats, limited edition stickers, and more surprises on Labor Day weekend. So stop in and take a victory lap at Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. And we're going to get a bunch of comments again that I'm better at the reads than you. Just so you know.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, it's because you're a radio guy.
We'll get to these other ones. Let's grab the phones. David in New Hampshire. David.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Hey.
Good.
So, first of all, it's been a while since I called in. Listen all the time, though. But,
love it.
as I said last time, which was like years ago, though, that, I was asked about Keyshawn Booty as a part of the, Booty Bandits. I was, glad. I had been happy to see, him really perform well so far. But my question for Evan would be, there's been a lot of mixed reporting on the day today. Some people saying horrendous. I just, from listening to you, it doesn't really sound like it was necessarily horrendous. My take from it was that the Vikings are, a Super Bowl contending team, potentially at the very least. And if they do, it'll be because they were carried by their defense and their skill players, although Justin Jefferson obviously wasn't playing today. So the fact that the Patriots, who we hope can be a playoff team or, bubble team, didn't, beat the Vikings both days isn't the biggest deal to me. Anyways, thank you guys.
Thanks, David. And just to be clear again, we're talking about the 2 days as a whole, collectively. So that's why maybe some of it sounded a little more positive than the reporting, because we only do the show once a week, so we wanted to kind of combine everything. But Evan, to about today, again, I think I asked you at the top of the show, but just to be clear, like your assessment of today specifically.
Yeah, I think I don't want to get too exaggerated and be like, oh, it's, it was a disaster, it was a train wreck, and use those types of words, because I don't think it was quite that. Like we've seen disaster when the Philadelphia Eagles were at Gillette Stadium last
you
summer,
wouldn't put it in the same conversation as that Eagles practice.
No, and I was actually talking to somebody about this after practice, because the Eagles practice last year was not just the fact that the Eagles roster was just better across the board than the Patriots. The Patriots looked like a disorganized team.
It was
was
non-competitive.
Yeah, they literally weren't lining up correctly. They were false starting left and right. There was a million penalties all over the field. They literally could not line up, snap the ball, and get a playoff against the Eagles last year. That was not this. This was two teams that are buttoned up and well coached, but just one team had the advantage over the other team. So maybe that's why, like, my opinion of it is not quite as like doom and gloom as some of the other reporting is. There's no doubt about it that Minnesota won the day. Like, it was a decisive Vikings win.
Yeah.
Like, there's no doubt about that. But in order to like really be realistic, like, because let's face it, Alex, like, I think that we're all really excited about Vrabel, and we're all really excited about where this team is headed. But Rome wasn't built in a day. Like, they're not going to be able to. This Vikings team won 14 games last year, and they're not going to all of a sudden flip a switch where they go from being a 4-win football team to dominating a 14-win team back-to-back days in joint practices. It's not linear. Like, it's not going to be perfect every single day. And I think that's sort of what we saw. So to kind of to the caller's point, right? Like that's sort of what I was expecting. Like, I did not expect to come here to Minnesota and have the Patriots win both days of practice. Not that I don't love the win practice thing, but whatever. Like, it's what we do. So I wasn't expecting that.
All things considered, between yesterday and today, did they do better, worse, or the same as your expectations coming in?
I'd say they met my expectations. I think yesterday was definitely better than what I was expecting.
Yeah.
Offensively, I thought today was sort of what I was afraid of was going to happen over the course of the 2 days, where it was like Drake May was fine, but they couldn't pass protect and they couldn't get anybody open, right? And that was sort of what my expectation was. And so that was what today was. But over the course of the 2 days, I would say they met them because they were able to have a nice day yesterday.
I still go back to, and it goes back to the Commanders practice, like, and again, I wasn't there, so this is just me going off reading, which, by the way, like, not being there and reading everything on Twitter makes me realize how hard it is to cover these, and, like, I want to do my best now. Not that you guys aren't doing the best you can, but, like, I know how hard it is, and, like, being on the other side of it, making sure, like, I give as many details when I'm down there. It's everything I see about today, as bad as it was, it doesn't sound like Drake May was bad. You know, there were limited opportunities, but... And I go back to the Commanders practice, and I said this earlier in the podcast, but I thought the Commanders practice, as good as it was, I think if you went back on tape and looked through it, there'd probably be more to nitpick. But I think Drake May elevated the situation at times. And if the blocking wasn't perfect or receivers weren't perfectly open, he still found ways to make it work. And it sounds like he maybe did some of that today, even when it wasn't great around him. And that's the most encouraging thing to me, because he's going to need to be able to do that at times, like we've talked about. This is not the finished roster. This is not Mike Vrabel's vision, ultimately. They're on the way to it, certainly, and they made significant strides, but it was never going to get fixed in one offseason. That was just never realistic. They've so far exceeded the roster turnover I was expecting, because in 1 year, like, you overturned 50% of your roster in one season. That's a lot. That's an uncharacteristic amount. They might end up over 50 by the time we get to week 1 from week 18 last year. So, like... it's encouraging to me, as rough as today was, or as rough as it sounds like, again, I didn't see it, that, you know, there's still that caveat, but Drake May, you know, what he made of it was good. And part of that is his confidence. Confidence, it's important to have when you're on the road with Bridgestone tires on your car, truck, SUV, or minivan. You're riding on tires you can trust. Bridgestone tires are engineered to give you peace of mind so you can focus on enjoying the journey. So whether you're on your morning commute, a cross-country road trip, or a relaxing Sunday drive, Bridgestone tires will be with you wherever life's roads may lead. Bridgestone solutions for your journey, available now at Sullivan Tire. Also tell you the show is sponsored by the Massachusetts 250 campaign, commemorating a history of possibility. Plan your revolutionary weekend at massachusetts250.org. Let's go. Let's see if we can get Patty again. Patty, you there this time?
I'm here this time.
All right.
What's up, guys?
Hey.
So just a couple things, and then Alex, I got a grievance I got to air out with you, buddy.
Okay.
I love it.
The first thing is, I was at that 59-0 game. It was awesome. I left at halftime because the forecast predicted rain, so I bought parkas with my best buddy, and our arms were frozen from the elbows up by the time halftime rolled around. The second thing is, I'll give you my favorite Patriots memory.
Yep.
And it was a game I was at. It was 1996. The Hail Mary Jacksonville game, not the AFC Championship game that year, but the Hail Mary game. It was Adam Vinatieri's first ever game-winning field goal, and I was there. I was sitting in the end zone where he kicked it, and it was a pretty cool experience. So my grievance with you, and this is off topic, maybe not too off topic, but you remember talking about Stephon Diggs coming off the ACL, and you rattled off a couple different players that came off ACLs and had great seasons. And nobody's going to top AP's season, winning the MVP and rushing for 2,000 yards. But I can't believe I listened to Phil Perry, I listened to you and a couple other guys. Nobody brought up 2014 Gronk because he tore his ACL in December of 2013 and came back. I think he played 15 games, but still threw up like 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns and was a first-team All-Pro. And that's it. It was a little even you, Evan. Come on, man. You're both you guys. That's your wheelhouse, man. I'm surprised neither of you threw that name out there. But that's it. A little lighthearted grievance, but you guys are the best. I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for the call, Patty.
That's a good one, Patty.
I remember that as an ankle injury. I think, was that the off season or was that the playoffs where he hurt his ankle? I just looked it up. It's an ACL.
The ankle injury was 2011. Like he had a hurt ankle in the Super Bowl.
That was one of the Bernard Pollard moments.
Yeah.
I don't know why I remember that as an ankle injury, but no, that was an ACL. And he came back that year, 2014, and he caught 82 passes, 1,100 yards, 12 touchdowns. Pretty good. 3 touchdowns in the playoffs, too. And he's awesome in that Super Bowl, obviously. So good call out. That's fair, Patty. All right, let's get to some of these emails. Jeffrey, subject line, or Jeff in Canada, subject line concern for May. Oh, this is from yesterday because that says earlier in the show, Paul said. And Paul's not here. So I'm not going to make you answer for Paul. This is Connor from St. Paul. Why you should care about. I think these are all from.
We can give you some new ones. Can I say one more thing about practice today?
Yeah, go ahead. And then I think I see where Catch-22 starts.
Okay. So one more thing about today that I think is important to mention. We talked about it very, very briefly. There's been some rumblings, right, about the backup quarterback spot in Joshua Dobbs. And I know that people saw a rough preseason game from him. And then yesterday was a rough practice. And honestly, I feel comfortable saying it was a bad practice because Vrabel just came out in his press conference and just said it how it was about Joshua Dobbs yesterday with some of the interceptions that he was throwing. Today was significantly better day from Joshua Dobbs. If Drake May had the day that Josh Dobbs had today, we would be flying. We would be flying high, baby, right? We'd have 2 days in a row of Drake May, really showing well against the Vikings defense. We would be really thrilled. So good bounce back day from Joshua Dobbs. Obviously, Efton Chism was a big part of that, in the mix. Kyle Williams in the mix. Javon Baker in the mix. Jack Westover to end practice up the seam in the mix. So it was a much, much better day, kind of put some water on that concern, right, of backup quarterback. I should mention, too, no Ben Woolridge for 2 days.
No
Ben
team
Woolridge.
Period. So that doesn't sound like that's not a competition.
No, Ben Woolridge is, and Vrabel said this morning, Josh Dobbs is the backup quarterback. Yeah. Everything is always subject to change with Mike Vrabel. There's always that caveat, but Josh Dobbs is the backup quarterback, and that seems to be pretty set in stone.
All right. Alexander emails in Catch-22 question. I'm sure Evan is still mourning the loss of Brock Lampy, since you guys are a draft show, I'll throw out a name as a possible replacement for next year. Max Bredesen, fullback from Michigan. Max Bredesen is a very good fullback. Let's see if Jack Westover can do it. He's got the profile for it. And I asked him what makes a good fullback. First thing he said was fearlessness. So that's a box checked. He's willing to, throw his body in there and get in the way, meet a linebacker in the A-gap. So let's give Westover a chance. 2 more questions he has for you, Evan. Have you noticed if McDaniels and the offensive staff have done anything with Drake's mechanics? And there's a pop-up. And is Javon Baker this year's Tyquan Thornton, or is what he's showing in practice going to translate?
2 good questions. With Drake's mechanics, I haven't seen anything different, and I thought one of the things that I liked about the last 2 days from Drake May was his poise and his feet were not getting. He wasn't getting skittish in the pocket, right? He wasn't having those moments of skittishness in the pocket or happy feet or anything like that with the pressure. I thought, nah, he's wearing the red jersey, so he knows he's not going to get hit. But still, I think that was good to see. And his mechanics look pretty much the same. Like the one thing with his mechanics that I was always wondering, footwork is not really mechanics, right? Footwork is footwork. Throwing mechanics is a different thing. And the one thing that I was kind of wondering with Drake May is, would they start to work on tightening his throwing motion? Because the longer that your throwing motion is and the longer that you bring your arm back in your throwing motion, there's more room for error in terms of controlling the football and throwing the ball accurately. And so I was wondering if maybe they would try to get him to be a little bit quicker and more compact, but I haven't necessarily noticed that. And the staff last year kind of thought that was overblown. Is the conversation around Drake made during the draft process that they didn't really see eye to eye with. So maybe that's just sort of like a media-driven narrative thing with his throwing motion.
Javon Baker, the real deal, or is this Tyquan?
So Javon Baker, more noticeable today in an actual team, an actual 11-on-11s working with Dobbs. But like to me, the push for Javon Baker has been on special teams.
Yeah.
Like him adding special teams into his repertoire is why we're talking about this right now, less so the plays that he's making on the practice field on offense. So that's different from Tyquan. Like they tried Tyquan at 185 pounds soaking wet. They tried Tyquan on some special teams things on, gunner and all that kind of stuff. And it never really stuck because he just didn't have the play strain for it. So if Javon Baker, as he tries to work on consistency and rounding out his game as a receiver, if he's going to make the team as a primary special teamer, like that's a different path to me. Like it's a different conversation than Tyquan.
I agree with you on that. So this email from John starts, "Hey, Alex. Hey, Barth." So Alex Barth is one person. Evan Lazar is the other, just to be clear. "Could you go into detail on how Will Campbell is losing his reps? I was under the impression his anchor was his best trait, but to my eyes, he's being pushed back pretty handedly on a lot of reps I've seen." I would just say, like, getting pushed back and anchor are different. Anchor is when you get pushed back, can you catch yourself? And maybe I'm wrong there, Evan, but yeah, that's how I think of it. And I do, like, when he does get pushed back, he's been much better about it. He wasn't as good at the beginning of camp. He's been much better that when he does get pushed back, he catches himself before it gets too far.
Yeah, I actually, in the game against the Commanders, I thought there were one or two reps where he lost, first contact and some guys got into his chest and were able to get some arm extension on him, which is something that with the length stuff is, something that I just watch closely for, right? Like how often do guys get into his chest? I don't think I see it the same way though. In general, I think the losses that he's had are on his edges, right? Like either getting blown by on the outside or those inside moves that we talk so much about with Will Campbell. Today with Grenard, I thought it was mostly the outside. I wonder, like sometimes, and I'd have to be able to see the film, but like when he has somebody in the B gap next to him in the 3-tech, it seems to me like he looks to kind of like help inside maybe, or is worried about like a pressure coming, right? Like a blitz that he's going to have to block down to. And so like, he's a little bit, I don't want to say slow, but just like he's a little hesitant out of his set, right? Because he's like sort of like cheating a little bit to the inside to like help to the 3-tech. And then maybe like, because if a linebacker comes down and blitzes, then he's going to have to bump over and take the blitzer and take the nearest threat to the quarterback. And sometimes like when that happens, like he goes to then set out and like the guy that's rushing off his edge is already won the first 3 steps, right? Like he's already by him. So there's that
did we lose
sort of thing. So I think that maybe, mental processing and stuff like that. But today I would say that was Grenard mostly got him on his outside edge. And it was more like Campbell just was a little bit slow to the punch on the outside. And if you want to be doomsday with it, like if you want to bring up the length, that was something that people that had concerns about Campbell sticking at tackle was he going to be able to reach out to those edge rushers without compromising his leverage? And then we get into the whole thing of him giving up the inside and all that stuff. So there was one pressure yesterday where Grenard beat him inside, and Vrabel actually brought that up in his press conference. And then there was a couple today where I thought was more to the outside. The pass protection is still a work in progress. Like it just is. It's still a work in progress. I don't know if I'm not at the point yet where I think that this is like a Will Campbell can't play tackle in the league. But it's something that is going to have to maybe be managed. Like we talked about this, Alex, in the draft, like chips and like helping him over on that side until he sort of figures it out. Like that's in play. Like if you're going to expect him, and I know Max Crosby typically rushes over the right tackle for the most part, but Max Crosby week 1, let's say the Raiders say we're going to attack the rookies and we're going to put Max Crosby over the left side. If you're going to expect Will Campbell at 25 times in week 1 to pass protect Max Crosby one-on-one on an island, then I think you're setting him up to fail. I don't think he's ready for that quite yet. So they're going to have to get maybe some creative things about it. And like the one other thing I would say about Will Campbell is actually talking to our good friend Glenn there at NBC Sports Boston about this. And or actually, I think it was Moose. I'm sorry, I get those two guys confused. I hesitate to say this because I don't want it to be taken the wrong way, but like I don't think the Patriots are going to be in a position with Will Campbell where they're saying we need to go draft or trade or acquire a left tackle because he can't play the position. Like just flat out, like he can't do it, right? And so next year we're in the draft or we're in free agency and like they have to pay a tackle because they just have. There's no wiggle room there. That being said, if like a year from now or 2 years from now they're in the draft and like a Tristan Wirfs like falls into their lap, right, in the draft, and they're able to draft a left tackle that has prototypical traits of a left tackle, and that moves Will Campbell inside or moves Will Campbell to the right side or like whatever the case may be. Yeah, I don't think that that's like the worst possible outcome that could happen from that draft pick. And I'm not saying that has to happen. I'm just saying like that's the scenario that I see. Like I hear a lot of people that just think that he's automatically going to have to move inside. I don't think that they're going to be so desperate to move him inside that it's automatic. I don't think that's where we're at.
If we get to the draft next year and there's a good chance that the best player on the board is a left tackle, like clearly the best player on the board, it's a conversation. It's a conversation, and as it should. And maybe we have the conversation, we decide, no, trade out or no, draft this guy or whatever. But like, I get what you're saying. Speaking of the draft, Mike in Pennsylvania asks how we feel about the linebacker depth, if there's any players in the pipeline that look promising for the future. So I started kind of really digging in this week since I'm back here and I'm not at practice. I got 3 names to you, really 2. I think a lot of people know who Harold Perkins is at this point. He was supposed to be a top 10 pick, got hurt, kind of had a down year when he came back. He's at LSU. His teammate, Whit Weeks. I don't know if you actually watched what I sent you, Evan, on Whit Weeks. Did you actually watch it?
A little bit.
That's Robert Spillane. Like, no? You don't think so?
Okay. I think he looks a little bit more athletic than Robert.
He's
Spillane.
a Vrabel linebacker. Like he is a fit in this system. He's also, if you watch the Netflix SEC documentary, I think he's got like the between the ears part of it set.
Sure.
And then the other guy, like, who is a true junior, I don't know if he'll come out or not, Kyle Lewis from Pitt. Do you remember Sir Vossier Dennis a couple years ago? Was another Pitt linebacker. He's on the Bucs now.
Yeah, the name sounds familiar.
So he's in the Sir Vossier Dennis role in the Pitt defense, but I think he's better. And he's like 6-something on the big board right now. That's going to go way up. But might sneaky be a good linebacker class next year. So I'm going to go through these a little quicker here because I want to get to these calls too. Nick in Boston. Love listening to you guys. Catch-22 definitely is the best Patriots discussions. However, you guys are going to look back on your Will Campbell takes over the summer with regret. It turns out a guy who's 330, runs a 4.9 140 with no dimensional limitations and excellent college tape would have been a good pick. Armand Membu locked down the Pro Bowler Kenny Clark one-on-one in their first preseason game and is having a great camp. But you guys don't want him since he's a right tackle. Where's he playing? He's playing right tackle, right?
Yeah, Fashanu's playing left, and I don't really understand. Kenny Clark's a defensive tackle, so I'm
I think you may have missed something there. So
I mean, maybe it was a edge. It was Rashawn. Another one of their. Kenny Clark's a Packer, right? Like my brain is.
So he mentions Grenard today. Beating Will Campbell. I don't know that we're going off of one practice.
Yeah, I mean, look, I said my piece about Will Campbell. I'm not trying to hide or like shy away from the fact that it hasn't always been great. Now, I think it was commendable of K'Lavon Chaisson to come out and really defend him yesterday, which he did. And I know it's a teammate, and like that might not mean anything to you, but K'Lavon Chaisson basically said, I think you guys are all being way too harsh. I think that he's been way better than what I keep reading and seeing out there. Not that he's like necessarily reading us, but they pay attention. They see certain things. And I think that he kind of came to Will Campbell's defense. And Jonathan Grenard, I think, was asked about him today after practice. He spoke with reporters post practice, and he seemed generally impressed. I mean, obviously, he's not going to come out and say, "Yeah, I torched that guy. He stinks," right? But he seemed pretty impressed with Campbell as well. There's no doubt about it that the pass protection stuff is something that we have to continue to watch with Will Campbell, and it remains a question mark with him. I don't have the practice film, so I can't really break it down. And there wasn't enough reps in the preseason game to really think about it, really be able to examine it. I think he's one of those guys that needs to win with his feet in his hands. Like that has to be the strength of his game, are quick, sudden punches with his hands, that aren't down the middle of the rusher, but like, more towards the pec, outside pec with the left hand, and firm punch and slide your feet, right? Like that's sort of got to be Will Campbell. And I think the concern with it, of what we've seen, is that can be very hit or miss. Because if you miss the punch and you're being aggressive like that and you miss the punch, then you're going to have those blow-bys, which is what you don't want to see. So for him, it's just going to be this balancing act of figuring out how to be consistent within that framework. And I think that's been a challenge so far, as it is for probably a lot of rookies.
Yeah, and again, and Nick says, keep up the great work. Thanks. We do appreciate you listening. Don't mean to pick on you like this, but just to be clear, the take at the time was I had my concerns, just like I had my concerns about Will Campbell. And I had said this, pick your poison. The guy who maybe doesn't have the ideal physical build, or the guy who's never played the position before. Armand Membu's at right tackle with the Jets. If the Patriots had needed a right tackle, I would have been fine with Armand Membu. But we've seen this team try to move tackles from right to left the last few years, and it hasn't gone well. I was skittish about that. I'm fine with that. Armand Membu being a great right tackle doesn't prove us wrong. If he ends up getting moved to left and is great, then we have to eat some crow. But I never had any doubts Armand Membu could play right tackle. Although some people pointed out in the chat he hasn't been great against the run. But I never had any doubts Armand Membu could play right tackle. That wasn't the conversation. Anthony asked, why not Carlton Davis at the tight end position? We talked about that. A couple people sending in their favorite Patriots moments. Wes Welker, 99 yards against Miami on Monday Night Football. That's a good one.
It's a good one.
07 Patriots beat the Ravens. Great game. What else? Subject line, Catch-22. Yeah, people are sending in now moments. Gronk removing Sergio Brown from the club. That's a good one.
Yep.
Josh and Turner Falls. You guys are the best out there right now. Real stuff. Appreciate all you do. Thank you. Is this going to be another guy that's like, I love the show, and then comes at us? So I have to, unfortunately, kind of go after a P1, which, again, Nick, I never like to do. I apologize. I just want to clarify that. No, Josh has a question. If the Pats only keep 3 running backs and 2 tight ends, is 7 receivers a possibility? A lot of Pats beat guys are saying 7. I honestly hope they do keep 7 if Chism and Baker prove they're worth keeping. We kind of talked about this, so just real quick. I think they can keep 3 tight ends and still keep 7 receivers. If the third is Westover and he's also your fullback, I think you can be 3 running backs, 3 tight ends, 7 receivers. I think that's in play.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, 3 running backs now with Larison out of the mix makes the most sense to me. I don't know if any of these other running backs. Although I will, Shane Watts, like Loki had a day yesterday. Like
I heard he got blown up today, though.
Yeah, today it was the other way, but it wasn't really him. It was more of the blocking in front of him. Yeah. But there was one player in particular that it was just a bad rep, and like 3 Vikings just came in unimpeded, unblocked on poor Shane Watts and just put him into the ground. But yesterday I thought that he had showed some juice and like a little bit of wiggle, like almost a little bit of Land Larison. Like I could see sort of similar players.
It's funny because they go from Land Larison was the FCS leader in all-purpose yards, right?
Yeah.
And so they lose him. All right. Who was the D2 leader in all-purpose yards? And Watts was like third, I think. But very similar college profile. Riley asks, hey, fellas, do you think it's possible we see Baker overtake Hollins' spot in the wide receiver room order? He's strung some nice days, weeks together, but of course we have to see with the ones. I think the two things, one, there's other players in the way there. I think Booty and Kyle Williams are in that conversation as well. And again, as you said earlier, Evan, Javon Baker's push to the roster is not really about what he's doing at wide receiver. Like his potential to develop as a wide receiver is part of it.
Right.
But he's making the team as a gunner. Like if he wasn't doing what he's doing on special teams, maybe we're talking about him for the practice squad. I don't think we are like really discussing him as this truly rosterable player if he wasn't making the special teams plays he is.
Yeah, I understand, and I understand the take on Matt Collins. Like, what is Matt Collins is a journeyman receiver that has really at his best is like a 600-yard type of guy, and so I get wanting to give reps to younger guys with higher upside. Like I totally understand the take from a lot of people. That being said, all we can do, Alex, is tell people what is happening at these practices and who are getting the reps with the meaningful reps with the ones and all that good stuff. And like Matt Collins is going to play. Like Matt Collins is going to have a role.
Yeah.
Matt Collins is going to play. Matt Collins is going to be involved in this offense. I actually think that he's had some moments, especially in these joint practices, where he's looked like one of their more consistent threats as a receiver. Today, I thought he caught a little, whole shot from Joshua Dobbs. The ref said it was out of bounds, but all of us kind of thought it was in bounds, but, we're not refs, so what do we know? And, then yesterday he got behind the defense on that busted coverage and had that long touchdown. Like Matt Collins has actually made some plays over the last couple of days, and he made a lot of plays against the Commanders too in that joint practice last week. So I don't think Matt Collins is going anywhere, and I think Matt Collins is going to have a role on this football team. So is there a world where we get to like Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Kyle Williams is all of a sudden this like the top X receiver? Yeah. Like I think that's in play. But other than that, like other than Kyle Williams behind the scenes continuing to grow and continuing to stack, positive practices behind the scenes, I think Matt Collins is going to play a lot.
So then we have from Chris mentions the subject line is I just read a score and I thought it was going to be his favorite regular season moment, but he says 2025 AFC wildcard game, Pats 34, Steelers 10. And he says we're going to surprise some people this year. I mean, they beat the Steelers 34-10 in the wildcard round. They probably had a pretty good season, regardless of what happens after that. 24-point win in the playoffs. So you just sign me up for that. I have no problem with that. He also asks, he says, it's exciting that there's so much more competition for roster spots this year. All right, list of players. Do they make the team or not? Ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Kendrick Bourne.
IR.
Interesting. I don't, this kills me because you know how I feel about Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah,
right now he doesn't look like he's making the team, and he's hurt. I get that, but like, you can't make the club from the top. Guys are passing him. Kendrick Bourne, to me, is one of the greater wasted potentials of the modern Patriots era. I mean, he had that great year in 21.
I'm sorry. It's not about Kendrick Bourne. I love the commitment to the take. I love it. Like,
we'll never know. This is my point. He had a great year in 21.
We'll never know.
He gets thrown in the doghouse in the Matt Patricia year over stuff he probably shouldn't have gotten thrown in the doghouse for, and that whole year was a mess. Comes back in 23, starts making plays. He was good before he got hurt. Remember that? Like every time they targeted him, it was a big gain. He was good in 23.
No, he was good with Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien had him.
He was good in 23, gets hurt, comes back. Last year, he's coming off the torn ACL, so he has that recovery year. And look, I'll admit, he's 30. He's had a knee injury. It's been 4 years since that 2021 season. If they don't just for whatever reason have a grudge against him in 22, and he's actually a part of that team now, you still have all the stuff with Mac Jones and everything. I'm not saying he would have been an 1,800-yard receiver. He could have had a solid career here. And I think he still has like the most catches and the most receiving yards of any wide receiver post Brady. Like, he's been their best receiver post Brady, which I know it's not a high bar to clear, but I remember doing, like, when we did the all sports up team, I think he's 5th since 2009 on the team in receiving yards or catches or something like that. Which, again, maybe is more about the players they've had than him. He could have had a good career here. And
Can I say one thing about Kendrick Bourne? One little take on this. So my take on Kendrick Bourne is that we both feel the same way about Kendrick Bourne. Maybe you is a little stronger than me, but
you want to talk about real estate on the island. I have a little more than you on Kendrick Bourne Island.
Yeah. Kendrick Bourne is an NFL receiver, right? Like that. I feel comfortable saying that he's an NFL wide receiver. He's a professional player, he's a pro receiver. So my IR take is just like, I don't know if there's playing time for him right now because Diggs, Pop, Hollins, Booty, and then you're going to want to try to get Kyle Williams' feet wet a little bit too. So there's probably not playing time for him right now. But if you place him on IR designated to return on cutdown day and, knock on wood, but like, God forbid, there's a rash of injuries at wide receiver.
Yeah.
Then you have a guy on injured reserve that's an NFL receiver that can play on Sunday immediately.
So you didn't clarify injured reserve designated to return.
Yeah, like I look at Kendrick Bourne as like...
That makes a lot more sense. That makes a lot more sense.
Like, can he just be like a stash player right now, right? Like, you just stash on injured reserve.
I thought you meant like injured reserve him now into season.
No. Okay. I mean, like, let's try to stash him on injured reserve.
I don't hate that.
Yeah.
I don't. So, by the way, so the reason that I used 2009 as the cutoff, as me and Matt Dolph did, it was supposed to be last year for the 15th anniversary, and then too much went on. So instead, we did it for the 16th anniversary, which actually was yesterday. Was the 16th anniversary of the Sports Hub going on the air. We did the Patriots All Sports Hub.
Shameless.
2009 and on. So keep in mind, this is since 2009. Kendrick Bourne's only been here for 4 of these years, and he's basically only played 2.5 between being in the doghouse in 22 and in the ACL. So since 2009, receptions among wide receivers, isn't tight ends, wide receivers for the Patriots. Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, Jacoby Myers, Danny Amendola, Kendrick Bourne, 5. Receiving yards, Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, Jacoby Myers, Danny Amendola, Kendrick Bourne, 5. I think he's a little lower in touchdowns. He's 6th in touchdowns. Chris Hogan and Randy Moss jumped in touchdowns, even though Moss played like no games in this window. Because Moss is just awesome. But like Sneaky had a better career here than people think. And I think it could have been better if they had managed him right and they didn't. But that's a whole Kendrick Bourne take from something that was supposed to be kind of a rapid fire exercise. So
yeah, let's go back to
Kendrick Bourne
fire.
IR. Cole Strange.
Off the team.
Ben Brown being the starting left guard today does not bode well for Cole Strange. I'm with you.
No.
Now maybe, former first round pick, they try find a trade partner, but I don't think he makes team. Kyle Duggar.
On the team. I think the contract and, you at least try to play it out and see if it's, they can get him back on track.
So part of the Kyle Duggar conversation is if you move on from him, who is the backup strong safety?
Right.
And they can keep an expensive backup. If Duggar's going to be better than whoever the option is, I'd rather keep Duggar for the year, even if it's unless it's going to be a major problem in the locker room. And there's that thing, right? But who would you rather have backing it? Again, Jabril Peppers, who I like, does have some injury history. Who would you rather have backing up Jabril Peppers, Kyle Duggar or Del Pettis?
So the question there, though, is if you're backing up at safety, and I know this is supposed to be rapid fire, and we stink at that. If you're backing up safety, like you also are going to have to play special teams.
Can Kyle Duggar play special teams?
I don't think you can't, but like if Kyle Duggar's issues are like physical, like he's like lost a step, like Del Pettis, just on special teams. I'm not saying Del Pettis is a better football player than Kyle Duggar, but there might be a world where he's a better special teamer than Kyle Duggar.
All right. I still think Duggar's on the team. I think Duggar's on the team. Vidarian Lowe.
So this is an interesting one. Probably something I could have brought up earlier. Again, we're not going to rapid fire this. This is something we can unpack.
We got 2 more calls and there's 15 minutes left. I think we can get this all in.
So Vidarian Lowe and Marcus Bryant were going back and forth, left, right, over the last couple of days with the second string offense. So Trey Jacobs was not getting as many reps.
I don't think that's a guy I don't think is on the team.
So we know that Vidarian Lowe, we've done the Vidarian Lowe swing tackle thing. Vidarian Lowe is a left tackle. And I understand that a lot of people say Vidarian Lowe's a left tackle. He's not a very good one. Okay, whatever. Take that piece of it out of it, right? Like, we know that Vidarian Lowe is much better on the left side than the right. Like, the pressure rate on the right side when he played the right side, and I think it was 23, is like double the pressure rate he allows on the left side. So I guess my point is like, if Marcus Bryant is good enough to be the top swing tackle, then you're keeping Vidarian Lowe on the team as like the backup left tackle, like, I guess, right? Like,
right, and then Marcus Bryant can just play right. Would probably be the plan.
Right. The question is like, I guess, you're looking at Will Campbell and left tackle. Like, and if you don't feel great about Marcus Bryant, a rookie, replacing Will Campbell, if Will Campbell gets hurt, then maybe you think that Vidarian Lowe has a purpose on the roster as a pure backup left tackle, and Marcus Bryant is more of a right tackle backup. I guess I could see them doing that and keeping 4 and just having a backup left and a backup right, and not a true swing tackle. So I don't know. I don't know if we've seen enough about Vidarian Lowe because he's been hurt. Like, it's hard to say if he's gotten any better or anything like that. But I would say Vidarian Lowe, long way to Grandma's house there. I would say Vidarian Lowe on the team.
Maybe he makes the initial 53. That's a spot where I wonder if maybe they go on waivers and try to find somebody. So maybe he's on initial 53 and then they get a waiver claim and he's the one that's off. But I still think I had TBD tackle on my roster projection. I'm sticking with that. And then Jelani Tavai.
That's so you.
Hey, last time I did that, I nailed it, by the way. So deal with it. Jelani Tavai.
Same plan as Kendrick Bourne.
All right, but if he's healthy.
I think he's on the team if he's healthy and there's no IR path for him. But when I look at their defense, even like more so than Duggar, Anthony Jennings and Jelani Tavai are the two guys that they look like they don't belong in terms of the scheme fit. They just
So the difference to me is before he got hurt, Tavai was getting run in practice. Like, he was out there with Spillane. I think they do have a role in mind for him. It might not be a significant role, or it might include special teams, but I think he's on the team.
Yeah, I could see that. I guess with Tavai, he played that, they used to call it, I think, the fixer or something like that. Like, he played a very specific role in the Belichick defense, not last year because of Bentley's injury, but 2 years ago when he was good. He played such a specific role in the defense, and that was a role that he was good at when used correctly. And I just don't know if that role exists anymore. I think what they want to do is have Spillane be like a true Mike and then have like a Will that flies around, playing off of Spillane. And I just don't know if that's Tavai. Maybe Tavai's the backup Mike, but we saw how that went last year. I feel like Jack Gibbons is probably a better backup to Spillane.
Real quick, those are all the players in the email. Also mentioned, I think the Brady statue is awesome. I think they did a great job. I very much enjoyed it. I will say, if you are planning on seeing it, try to go see it at night. It's even cooler at night. That was my one big takeaway. And the head's not too small. He's wearing shoulder pads. That's why it looks like that. Look at his head and look at his bicep. It's the shoulder pads make, at first glance, the shoulder pads make it look small. But he's wearing shoulder pads. It's a football uniform. That's why it looks like that.
So really quickly on the Brady statue, because you and I were there for the statue unveiling, and I don't want to speak for you, but we both came away with that feeling like we went through a religious experience.
I didn't think it was going to be Dwayne Wade level bad, but it vastly exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, and I think that part of it was the ceremony was really cool.
Ceremony was great.
There was tons of people there in terms of fans, but there was also a lot of really cool alumni that were there as well. So that was a big piece of it. I don't want to hear like any, and this is not team employee speaking, like this is truly from the heart. Like, I don't want to hear any criticism of that statue. That statue is sick. Like, go see it in person and go look at, he is 17 feet tall, and the detail that's on the statue, like the from the cleats and the knee brace and the quarterback playbook, arm pad,
eye black,
the eye black, the helmet.
That you have to get up close to see this. Like, some people mentioned that this is something that I like to do with the statue. Some people mention you can't really see the jersey numbers because of the way they carved it. When you go in person, you can see it. It's very clear. It maybe doesn't photograph. It doesn't come across as detailed in photographs, but I think they didn't make it to be photographed. They made it to be seen in person. I would rather more effort be put into what does this look like when you're standing in front of it compared to what is it going to look like in pictures.
The pose, I had concerns about the pose because it's not an iconic Brady pose, but it's so huge and he's so tall that the fist in the air, it's a very powerful pose.
Yep.
And what it does is, like, he was a larger than life figure in NFL sports history. And the pose and the height and the just sheer size of the statue, it makes it larger than life. And that's Tom Brady. Like, he was larger than life. He is larger than life.
They did a great job. All right, let's go to these calls real quick before we wrap it up. Manish in New York City. What's going on? Manish, you there? I left him on hold for a while. Put him on hold. Try to get him back. If you can get back to your phone, get back to your phone. We'll take you after this one. We got to go to, I know Eldridge is there. Right? Eldred? Did we go over 2 here? Nothing from Eldred? All right. We'll try again in a second. What are you looking? We already kind of did it. We did it for the offense. We didn't do it for the defense. What are you looking for from the defense Saturday in Minnesota?
Yeah, and a lot of things that they harped on defensively coming off that game, Vrabel did, was tackling. He mentioned tackling like multiple times when he was talking about the defense, and they don't tackle to the ground in practice. So it stands to reason that they're going to be a little bit sloppy tackling for the first time in a preseason game. So that's another reason why I think that maybe some of the defensive starters will play, is because they're not going to live tackle to the ground in camp. So like they're going to have to get some tackling reps, live tackling under their belt. And the only way to really do that is to have them play in the game if they're not going to tackle in practice. Yep. So that's why I wonder if some of those guys are going to play. It was good to see Carlton Davis back out there. I don't think we'll see him on Saturday. He might be one of the few guys, kind of like last week, where a few veterans here and there were held out of the game. But he practiced both days. He was out there fully participating. He had a really funny press conference here yesterday where like reporters kept on trying to ask him injury questions about himself in different ways. And he just like kept on being like, I'm not going there. Like he just kept on making jokes about how we were trying to trap him into talking about what's going on. He did admit that there was something physical going on, but he felt like, if they were playing an actual game on Sunday, he would be out there. Yeah. But this time of year, it's just more about managing it. So I would harp on, with the defense to stick with what Vrabel's been saying to us, which is just tackling. They have to be better at tackling, and the only way to get better at tackling is to practice tackling, and got to do that in the preseason. So
let's try the phones one more time. Manish, you there? Hello, going once, going twice. Nope. Eldred, going once, going twice. Man. That's tough.
Tough. That's okay.
Yeah, like I hate leaving people on hold for that long, but that's just what happens on the show. I do have one more email here. Rio in Texas wants to talk about the future of the Patriots. 3 most important players for this upcoming season. He says Drake May's number 1, Will Campbell's number 2. Says he thinks most people would agree. Yeah, that's fair. So he has an interesting pick for 3 there. For 3 here. Kyrus Tonga. There's no one else on the team that can fill his role as a run-stuffing nose tackle with some juice in the pass rush. If he goes down, we could see the run defense falter for a second straight year. So my mind instantly goes to Christian Gonzalez. But to his point, like, look, if they lose Christian Gonzalez, that's a major blow. But you have Carlton Davis. Like, the drop-off from Carlton Davis, from Christian Gonzalez to Carlton Davis, maybe isn't as big as the drop-off from Kyrus Tonga to Jeremiah Farms, I guess it would be, probably in that role, right? So I'd still probably go Gonzalez because I just think a lockdown corner is that important. But so I would go, I might even go May, Gonzalez, Campbell, because I think May can maybe do some things where if the pass protection isn't perfect, he can still make plays. Whereas if you lose Gonzalez, I think you're going to lose the ability to do some things you want to do defensively, not everything, but some things. But they do, in theory, have a replacement for Christian Gonzalez. Nobody can really replace him, but like there's a clear next man up. They don't really have that with Tonga. So I don't know that I have him at 3. He probably would be higher on my list than most people would think in terms of most important players, especially after the camp he's had. But it's a good point by Rio, Evan.
So is this a long-term look, or are we just talking about the
So he says for
season?
this upcoming season.
So to me, it's May, Campbell, Stephon Diggs. Like
That's a good one.
I just for 2025. Like Stephon Diggs is not a long-term thing necessarily, but it's not just, we've done this before. It's not just the Stephon Diggs himself. It's also the hierarchy of the wide receiver room and like how the pressure that puts on guys like Pop Douglas and Kayshon Boutte and Kyle Williams. Like if Stephon Diggs were to get hurt and miss serious time, like we're kind of back where we were last year with this wide receiver room. Like you have a rookie that you're hopeful is going to play well, and you have some other younger players that are promising, but you have no dude. Like you have no established veteran star receiver. So I think Diggs is hugely important. I know that's 3 guys and all on offense, and there's no defense, and that does feel weird, but I would say Diggs has got to be in that conversation.
You and your fantasy football. Yeah. No, it's fair. Diggs is up there. I just think with Pop, I have faith in Kyle Williams. We talked about what Vrabel said about him today. Like I don't think you're all the way back to last year. I also just think there's a chance that like Diggs isn't 100% right away. There's probably plans in place for Diggs to get off to a slow start. I would hope. Not that I'm betting on it, but it's a guy coming off an ACL. He's 31 years old. Like, I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I don't mean to say, I'm not trying to say I don't think Diggs is going to do well. I just think the contingency plan for losing Diggs is stronger than the contingency plan for losing Gonzalez.
I guess you think? I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess.
Well, I guess with Carlton Davis's injury history, maybe
like Carlton Davis,
but
Alex. I don't know. I just look at the wide receiver room always as that hierarchy, that pecking order of like, do you have a coverage dictating receiver? Do you not have a coverage dictating receiver? Well, and the only guy that has that potential to be truly a coverage dictating receiver is Diggs.
So Diggs has that potential, but he's 31. He's coming off a torn ACL. Gonzalez is coming off an All-Pro season, and that's kind of what I'm going off of. Like, I think Diggs has the potential to be 3, but there's more variance with him. I feel very comfortable knowing what I'm getting from Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. That'll do it for this episode of Catch-22. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We will be back next week. What day next week? Because they play Thursday. So
I just thought of that. The game is Thursday, so we can't do Thursday. So we'll probably end up doing Wednesday.
Are they practicing on Tuesday?
I believe so, but there obviously is no practice on Wednesday, the day before the game. So
right, but do we want to do after practice on Tuesday?
But I'm also traveling on Wednesday.
Oh, it's a road game. I forgot it's a road game.
So we have to figure this out. There's a lot of moving parts.
This is what we do on Patriots Beat now. Like the last 5 minutes of every show is planning the next show.
Maybe Tuesday.
I actually might not be able to do Wednesday either. So.
Oh, you're in the big chair?
No, I am calling the old time baseball game for Steve Buckley again.
Oh, there you go.
I know, it's a fun thing. I'm looking forward to it. But that's unless we do in the morning, I don't know if I'd be able to do that. So probably Tuesday. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe. You know the drill. You'll be notified when it's happening. Evan's usually better at tweeting it out than me. So until the next one, for Alex Behind the Glass, for Evan Lazar, I'm Alex Bart. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.
Hey, this is Deuce. Thanks for tuning into the show. If you really want to help us, make sure you like us wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also, make sure you follow us on the New England Patriots YouTube channel to see this show and everything else that we do here at the Patriots. Thanks a lot.